Anti-Federalist number 9. A consolidated government is tyranny. Montezuma was regarded as a Pennsylvania, wrote this essay, which showed up in the Independent Gazetteer on October 17th, 1787. We, the aristocratic party of the United States, lamenting the many inconveniences to which the late Confederation subjected the well-born, the better kind of people, bringing them down to the level of the rabble, and holding in utter detestation that frontispiece to every Bill of Rights, that all men are born equal, beg leave, for the purpose of drawing a line between such as we think were ordained to govern and such as were made to bear the weight of government without having any share in its administration, to submit to our friends in the first class for their inspection the following defense of our monarchical, aristocratical democracy. First, as a majority of all societies consists of men who, though totally incapable of thinking or acting in governmental matters, are more readily led than driven. We have thought meet to indulge them in something like a democracy in the new Constitution, which we have designated by the popular name of the House of Representatives. But to guard against every possible danger from this lower house, we have subjected every bill that they bring forward to the double negative of our upper house and president, nor have we allowed the populace the right to elect their representatives annually, lest this body should be too much under the influence and control of their constituents, and therefore prove the weatherboard of our grand edifice, to show the shiftings of every fashionable gale. For we have not yet to learn that little else is wanting to aristocratize the most democratical representative than to make him somewhat independent of his political creators. We have taken away that rotation of appointment which has so long perplexed us, that grand engine of popular influence. Every man is eligible into our government from time to time with the lower class, and imbibing their foolish sentiments with which they would have come charged on re-election. Second, they will, from perpetuality of office, be under our eye, and in a short time will think and act like us, independently of popular whims and prejudices. For the assertion that evil communications corrupt good manners is not more true than its reverse. We have allowed this House the power to impeach, but we have tenaciously reserved the right to try. We hope, gentlemen, you will see the policy of this clause, for what matters it who accuses, if the accused is tried by his friends. In fine, this plebeian House will have little power, and that little be rightly shaped of our House of Gentlemen, who will have a very extensive influence from their being chosen out of their gentiler class. It is true, every third senatorial seat is to be vacated duannually, but 2/3 of this influential body will remain in the office and be ready to direct, or, if necessary, bring over to the good old way the young members, if the old ones should not be returned. And whereas many of our brethren, from a laudable desire to support their rank in life above the commonalty, have not only deranged their finances, but subjected their persons to indecent treatment, as being arrested for debt, etc., we have framed a privileged cause, by which they may laugh at the fools who trusted them. But we have given out that this clause was provided only that the members might be able to, without interruption, to deliberate on the important business of their country. We have frequently endeavored to effect in our respective states the happy discrimination which pervades this system, but finding we could not bring the states into it individually, we have determined and have taken pains to leave the legislature of each free and independent state, as they now call themselves, in such a situation that they will eventually be absorbed by our grand continental vortex, or dwindle into petty corporations, and have power over little else than yoking hogs or determining the width of cartwheels. But aware that an intention to annihilate state legislators would be objected to our favorite scheme, we have made their existence as a board of electors necessary to ours. This furnishes us and our advocates with a fine answer to any clamors that may be raised on this subject. We have so interwoven continental and state legislatures that they cannot exist separately, whereas we in truth only leave the power of electing us, leave them the power of electing us. For what can a provincial legislature do when we possess the exclusive regulation of external and internal commerce, excise, duties, imposts, post offices, and roads? Then we and we alone have the power to wage war, make peace, coin money, if we can get bullion. If not, borrow money, organize the militia, and call them forth to execute our decrees, and crush insurrections, assisted by a noble body of veterans subject to our nod, which we have the power of raising and keeping even in the time of peace. What have we to fear from the state legislatures, or even from states, when we are armed with such powers, with the president at our head, a name we thought proper to adopt in conformity to the prejudices of silly people who are so foolishly fond of republican government, that we were obliged to accommodate names and forms to them in order to more efficiently to secure the substance of our proposed plan. But we all know that Cromwell was a king with the title of protector. I repeat it. What we have to fear, what have we to fear armed with such powers, with a president at our head who is a captain general of the Army, Navy, and militia of the United States, who can make and unmake treaties, appoint and commission ambassadors from other ministers, who can grant or refuse reprieves or pardons, who can make judges of the Supreme and other continental courts, in short, who will be the source, the foundation of honor, profit, and power, whose influence, like the rays of the sun, will diffuse itself far and wide, will exhale all democratical vapors, and break the clouds of popular insurrection. But again, gentlemen, our judicial power is a strong work, a masked battery. Few people see the guns. We can and will ere long play off from it. For the judicial power embraces every question which can arise in law or equity under this Constitution and under the laws of the United States, which laws will be, you know, the supreme laws of the land. The power extends to all cases affecting ambassadors or other public ministers, and consuls to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state, between citizens of a different state, between citizens of the same state, claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state and the citizens thereof, and foreign states, citizens, or subjects. Now, can a question arise in the colonial courts with the ingenuity or sophistry of an able lawyer may not bring within one or other of the above cases? Certainly not. That our court will have original or appellate jurisdiction in all cases, and if so, how fallen are state judiciaries, And must not every provincial law yield to our supreme flat? Our Constitution answers yes. And finally, we shall entrench ourselves so as to laugh at the cabals of the commonality. Wow. A few regiments will do at first. It must be spread abroad, and they are absolutely necessary to defend the frontiers. Now a regiment and then a legion must be added quietly, and by a frigate or two, by and by a frigate or two must be built, still taking care to intimate what they are essential to the support of our revenue laws and to prevent smuggling. We have said nothing about a Bill of Rights, for we viewed it as an eternal cog upon our design, as a lock chain to the wheels of government through. By the way, as we have not insisted on rotation in our offices, the smile of a wheel is ill. We have for some time considered the freedom of the press as a great evil. It spreads information and begets a licentiousness in the people, which needs the rein more than the spur. Besides, a daring printer may expose the plans of government and lessen the consequence of our President and Senate. For these and many other reasons, we have said nothing with respect to the right of the people to speak and publish their sentiments, or about the palladiums of liberty and such stuff. We do not much like the sturdy privilege of the people, the right to demand the writ of habeas corpus. We have therefore reserved the power of refusing it in cases of rebellions. And you know we are the judges of what is a rebellion. Our friends, we have been assiduous in representing our federal calamities until at length the people at large, frightened by the gloomy picture on one side and allured by the prophecies of some of our fanciful and visionary adherents on the other, are ready to accept and conform our proposed government without the delay or forms of examination, which was the more to be wished, as they are wholly unfit to investigate the principles or pronounce on the merit of so exquisite a system. Impressed with the conviction that this Constitution is calculated to restrain the influence and power of the lower class, to draw that discrimination we have so long sought after, to secure to our friends privileges and offices which were not to be obtained under the former government because they were in common, to take the burden of legislation and attendance on public business off of the commonalty, who will be much better able thereby to prosecute with effect their private business, to destroy that political 13-headed monster, the state sovereignties, to check the licentiousness of the people by making it dangerous to speak or publish daring or tumultuary sentiments, to enforce obedience to laws by a strong executive aided by military pensioners, and finally to promote the public in private interests of the better kind of people. We submit it to your judgment to take such measures for its adoption as you in your wisdom may think fit. Signed by unanimous order of the Lords Spiritual and Temporal, Montezuma. In general, all these various people would prefer a government as nearly copied after that of Great Britain as our circumstances will permit. Some would strain these circumstances. Others will retain a deep-rooted jealousy of the executive branch and strong Republican prejudices, as they are called. Finally, this class contains more aggregate wisdom and moral virtue than both of the other two together. It commands nearly 2/3 of the property and almost 1/2 of the numbers of America, and has at present become almost irresistible from the name of the truly great and amiable man who, it has been said, is disposed to patronize it, and from the influence which it has over the second class. This first class is nearly at the height of their power. They must decline or moderate, or another revolution will ensue, for the opinion of America is becoming daily more unfavorable to those radical changes which the high-toned government requires. The conflict would terminate in the destruction of this class or the liberties of their country. May the guardian angel of America prevent both. Second, the second class is composed of those descriptions of men who are certainly more numerous with us than in any other part of the globe. First, those men who are so wise as to discover that their ancestors and indeed all the rest of mankind were and are fools. We have a vast overproportion of these great men who, when you tell them that from the earliest period at which mankind devoted their attention to social happiness, it has been their uniform judgment that a government over governments cannot exist. That is, two governments operating on the same individual assume the smile of confidence and tell you of two people traveling the same road of a perfect and precise division of the duties of the individual. Still, however, the political apothegm is as old as the proverb that no man can serve two masters, and whoever will run their noodles against old proverbs will be sure to break them, however hard they may be. And if they broke only their own, all would be right. But it is very horrible to reflect that all our numbskulls must be cracked in concert. Second, the trimmers, who from sympathetic indecision are always united with, and when not regularly employed, always fight under the banners of these great men. These people are forever at market, and when parties are nearly equally divided, they get very well paid for their services. Thirdly, the indolent. That is almost every second man of independent fortune you meet within America. These are quite easy and can live under any government. If man can be said to live who scarcely breathe, and if breathing was attended with any bodily exertion, would give up their small portion of life in despair. These men do not swim with the stream as the trimmers do, but they are dragged like mud at the bottom. As they have no other weight than their tat flesh, they are hardly worth mentioning when we speak of the sentiments and opinions of America. As this second class can never include any of the yeomanry of the Union, who never affect superior wisdom, and can have no interests but the public good, it can be only said to exist at the birth of a government. Then, as soon as the first and third classes become more decided in their views, this will divide with each and dissipate like a mist, or sink down into what are called moderate men, and become the tools of instruments of others. These people are prevented by a cloud from having any view, and if they are not virtuous, they at least preserve the appearance, which in this world amounts to the same thing. Third, at the head of the third class appear the old rigid Republicans, who, although few in number, are still formidable. Reverence will follow these men in spite of detraction, as long as wisdom and virtue are esteemed among mankind. They are joined by the true Democrats, who are in general fanatics and enthusiasts, and some few sensible, charming madmen. A decided majority of the yeomanry of America will, for a length of years, be ready to support these two descriptions of men. But as this last class is forced to act as a residuary legatee and receive all the trash and filth, it is in some measure disgraced and its influence weakened. Thirdly, the freebooters and plunderers who infest all countries and ours, perhaps as little as any other whatever. These men have that natural antipathy to any kind or sort of government that that a rogue has to a halter. In number they are few indeed. Such characters are the offspring of dissipation and want, and there is not that country in the world where so much real property is shared so equally among so few citizens. For where poverty is as easily acquired by fair means, very few indeed will resort to foul. Lastly, by the poor mob, infolex persis, the property of whomever will feed them and take care of them, let them be spared. Let the burden of taxation sit lightly on their shoulders. But alas, this is not their fate. It is here that government forever falls with all its weight. It is here that the proposed government will press where it should scarcely be felt. In this third class may be counted men of the greatest mental powers and of sublime virtue as any in America. They at present command nearly 1/3 of the property and above half the numbers of the United States, and in either event they must continue to increase in influence by great desertions from both the other classes. If the proposed government is not adopted, theirs will be the prevalent opinion. The object of this either is or will be purely federal and union of independent states, not a government of individuals. And should the proposed federal plan fail from the obstinacy of those who will listen to no conditional amendments, although such as they cannot disapprove, or should it ultimately in its execution upon fair trial disappoint the wishes and expectations of our country, then a union purely federal is what the reasonable and dispassionate patriots of America must bend their views to. My countrymen, preserve your jealousy, reject suspicion. It is the fiend that destroys public and private happiness. I know some weak, but very few, if any, wicked men in public confidence. And learn this most difficult and necessary lesson, that on a preservation of parties, public liberty depends. Whenever men are unanimous on great public questions, whenever there is but one party, freedom ceases and despotism commences. The object of free and wise people should be so to balance parties. From that of the weakness of all, you may be governed by the moderation of the combined judgments of the whole, not tyrannized over by the blind passions of a few individuals. Okay, folks, this is it. Cold enough out here. We're at 0. I'll continue this hopefully tomorrow. Peace.